Cold water therapy. It has been a health craze that has taken over the internet in the last few years. You can't move but see people jumping into ice baths, braving cold showers, or swimming in icy cold waters. I want to know why. I'm a fan myself, but are the health benefits actually true? You might be surprised with some of the findings. I know I was, so stay tuned. I'm going to share with you as well my protocol for how to get the best out of cold water therapy and stay safe. You might have heard about cold water swimming and therapy thanks to someone called Wim Hof. And if you don't know who he is, then he's this kind of controversial, slightly crazy figure from the Netherlands known as the Iceman, because he's broken so many world records in cold water and ice. And he has created this specific method known as the Wim Hof method. You see where the name came from, which is a combination of specific breath work, meditation and cold water therapy that they reckon within 10 days can solve loads of your physical and mental health problems. Now, this sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? But there are tons of people all over the world who think this is absolutely bloody marvellous. And there was a really interesting study in Nature that's just come out testing exactly whether or not this is true or a load of BS. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, so stay tuned. But first, I think you need to know what happens to your body when it actually is immersed in cold water. So when you get into the cold water, it activates something called your sympathetic nervous system, which you might have heard of as your fight or flight. This is essentially when we were kind of hunter-gatherers and you needed to be able to run fast away from the lion. It means your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases, your breathing rate increases because you have a surge of noradrenaline, adrenaline and cortisol. All those hormones that kind of make you go boom and be able to run really fast. And you get the diversion from the blood flow from your hands and feet and your arms and your legs up to the core to keep your kind of major organs warm. And this is what makes you feel like really alert when you get in that cold water. But really interestingly, if your head goes under the cold water, you have sensors on your face that activate the opposite, something called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is known as your rest and digest. And this means that your heart rate drops and your blood pressure drops and your breathing rate drops. And so therefore, if you just jump straight into cold water and put your head under, there's like these two conflicting messages for your body, and it can actually cause your heart rate to go into an irregular rhythm, which for most people is okay, and they may just go back into a regular rhythm quite quickly. But if you've got any sort of heart problem, that can actually be really dangerous, even fatal. So top tip number one is don't just throw yourself straight into very cold water and put your head under. Okay, so now I want to go through what are some of the claims made about cold water therapy and the benefits it can make. Well, one of the things I think is most interesting is something called the adaptive stress response. So the theory is that when you're getting into that cold water and you're having that stress response, which I've just talked about, that something called hormesis means a little bit of stress for your body means your body can adapt and then have less of a stress response to other situations. So if I just explain that. So if you're regularly getting into cold water, you have that cortisol, noradrenaline, adrenaline, and then you can calm down and your body kind of goes, oh, okay, I'm all right. And therefore, your body starts to relax much more quickly and easily. So you have less of that peak of sympathetic nervous system drive. So therefore, if you've got kind of a scary work meeting, you've got an exam, you're going to meet someone for a first date, it means that your body can respond in a much more calm manner than it would have done otherwise. So this is called cross-adaptation, and I think this is really interesting. And so similarly, it can help your stress, theoretically, and people often really think that it helps their mental health. So it's meant to help with anxiety and depression. Now, there's been lots of people looking into this. The studies have been thin. There was a really good study that had very positive results looking at people doing cold water swimming and how it really improved their mental health. But actually, it was quite difficult to tell whether this was the actual swimming, was it the placebo, was it getting out into a social group activity? So it's quite difficult to pinpoint. But there was one study that's often cited that suggested that your dopamine levels, which is like one of your happy hormones, were increased by 450% after cold water swimming. And I definitely think that when I've been cold water swimming or in cold water immersion or even after a cold water shower, I do feel, you kind of get that like exhilaration, you feel happy. So for me, I'm like, yeah, that feels like it's definitely real. So that's promising. And one of my other favourite things to share with you is about something called brown fat. Now, you may not have heard of this, or maybe you have. I didn't know much about it, and we're often thinking about trying to get rid of fat, but actually brown fat is something we want to get a bit more of, and that's because brown fat works as like a little internal furnace. It keeps you warm when you're cold and therefore kind of burns energy and burns calories, so theoretically could help you stay slimmer. So brown fat is really exciting, and there's loads of studies going on at the moment. Lots of them unfortunately are like in rodents, so we can't quite extrapolate to humans as yet. But there's lots of promising research, and I, for one, think that's really exciting. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, this bit, listen up. I think you'll be quite surprised by this bit. So Does using cold water therapy help with post-workout recovery? Now, it depends. So if you want to get rid of some soreness from a workout, maybe you're an endurance athlete and it's really important that tomorrow you can get back on your bike or something like that. And for example, when I did the London Marathon a few years ago, I did get in a cold ice bath when I got home because I wanted to be able to go to work the next day. And that works, that really works. However, if your goal is building muscle and building strength, then stay away from the post-workout ice baths. Because the reason you do build muscle is you get little micro tears in your muscle and then it builds back bigger and stronger. So if you're trying to build your muscles, then don't get in the ice bath after your workout. Top tip. There are a plethora of other apparent things that cold water therapy can do to help. Chronic inflammation, improve your insulin sensitivity, and improve your immune system. Now, there are studies on these are all kind of thin on the ground, and there's not enough evidence to say whether it's true or not true, so gotta keep an eye out for this. But again, it's all kind of promising. There's a lot more research being done, but not enough for me to kind of tell you whether it's really working or not working for those things. Without wanting to sound like a party pooper, we do need to make sure that we cover the fact that cold water does kill people. So you do have to remember that and be careful. Really sadly, an English woman died, I think last year, from just jumping into cold water. There have been apparent drownings related to the Wim Hof method, especially people who do the breathing method where they hyperventilate, so they breathe really fast whilst in the water. Don't ever do that because you can faint and then drown. So just remember, if you are going to go cold water swimming, then try not to do it by yourself. Make sure you're going with a group who know where to swim. You can't swim in all places, like here you can't swim even though it looks beautiful. So just remember that cold water can be dangerous, so make sure you're being safe. All right, so I promise you I'll get back to tell you about the Wim Hof method. So recently in Nature magazine there was a fantastic study done. So lots of the evidence about cold water therapy is poor, but this was a really well done study. And it took people and gave them 15 days of the Wim Hof method. Now remember, Wim Hof method says they can sort you out in 10 days, so they kind of did 50% extra. And Wim Hof supporters will be devastated to find out that after 15 days, there was no difference between the control group and those doing the Wim Hof method. So there's really no evidence it works at all within 15 days. I think if you did it over a longer period of time, 6 months, who knows, maybe you certainly would see benefits, because it kind of makes sense that you're going to get these benefits. But I think it's unrealistic to expect such big changes or any changes in 10-15 days. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a protocol I think is worth trying to get the most benefit out of cold water therapy and avoid the dangers. So, sorry to say that if you've got high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, or poor circulation, you may not be a good idea for you to go and do this, or certainly speak to a health professional before you try. But for everyone else, I think the first thing is be gradual and take it slowly. So you don't just want to fling yourself straight into a body of water, like I said, and put your head under. So we know that 60% of deaths, cold water swimming deaths, occur within the first 2 minutes. So if you are, for example, getting into cold water, then just take your time, stay there for a couple of minutes, let your breathing settle, because remember, you are going to get that really fast breathing. Make sure you're calm, and actually you get the most benefits within those 2 minutes. Well, if you want to stay in longer, that's just because you're enjoying it, but that kind of the physiological benefit are actually in the first 2 minutes anyway. So either float on your back or just kind of wade before you start swimming. So that's point number one. Point number two would be about your breathing technique. So whether you're under a cold shower, you're in an ice bath, you're in the water, your breathing will speed up. And whenever I do this, you kind of have to kind of consciously think, right, Sophie, just calm your breathing, like in through your nose, out through your mouth. And that really helps settle you quite quickly. Even in the cold shower, I do that now. I'm kind of like, you kind of have that response where you go, and then you go, okay, breathe. So focus on gradual, slow, deep breaths. And thirdly, listen to your body. So if you're not enjoying it, don't do it. If you're feeling too cold and it's horrible or in any pain or anything, just don't do it. We're not all built the same. We can't all tolerate the same thing. So just because your friend is doing it doesn't mean you can. So just listen to your body and just take it seriously and get out and warm up if you need to. That's the other thing, is sometimes people enjoy having a little warm up before they get in, so you're already warming up your muscles, and warm up quickly when you get out. Put something warm around you, do some light exercise, have a cup of tea. That'll help you feel a bit better when you get out. Although, having said that, when I get out, I tend to feel so amazing. I'm usually like, yeah, I feel great. We'll probably run up and down the beach a bit anyway, but maybe that's just me. All right, so in conclusion, the studies are not brilliant. to support the benefits of cold water therapy, but they are coming in there promising. But I love it. I love getting in the cold sea. I love getting in kind of wild swimming, even my cold showers. I love it. So if you love it, then definitely do it. If you're not sure about it, then most studies are certainly suggesting that there's benefits for mental and physical health. So give it a whirl. Hope you've learned a lot. I know I did just doing the research for this. I am Dr. Sophie. Please engage in the comments. Love to hear from you, and I'll see you in my next video.